In this video we're going to show you how to do the Crazy Quilt block, the Crazy Quilt triangle block, and you're going to need your 3 pieces of fabric cut in the width that we show you. For the video we're going to do the small version of it. You can do a small or a large. We're going to do the small. You'll need your prepared wool batting, your backing fabric. You'll have to have your battleizer hooped. You're going to need your water-soluble thread and an embroidery bobbin thread, and also your thread for your quilting and a matching bobbin. For step 1, we have our water-soluble thread in the needle and our embroidery bobbin thread in the bobbin, and the machine will stitch an outline. For step 2, we're going to place our optional wool. If you decide not to use the wool, just skip on to step 3. But for step 2, if you are using the wool, you will have already had it cut and prepared and pressed on the edges so your presser foot does not get caught in it. And we still have the same thread and the needle and the bobbin, and the machine will sew a zigzag stitch to attach the wool to the battleizer. Step 3, same thread in the needle and bobbin, and we're going to sew a pattern right over the top of the wool, or the battleizer if you skip the wool. And you just need to make sure that your presser foot position is in the highest one that will allow, and or you may need to hold the wool down ahead of the presser foot to make sure it doesn't get caught. Now this Crazy Quilt block is going to be a little different than some of the other ones that we've done, where the difference is that we don't tell you to put fabric 1 here and 2 here and 3 here. You get to pick and choose where you want to place your fabrics. So I'm just going to grab my white piece, my white floral, for the very first spot, and the very first piece of fabric that gets tacked down, we're still going to leave the water-soluble thread in the needle. And we'll sew a tack down stitch. And on the smaller block, you probably want to leave 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch on the outside. And even if it's a little bit more, that's okay because you're going to trim the block up when it comes out of the hoop. So anything on the inside of the block, you're going to want to trim to 1/4 of an inch. And we already did a good job of putting the fabric in the right spot. And then 1/4 to 3/8 and 1/2 inch is fine too on the outside of the block. We are ready to do step 5, and step 5 we're going to sew a seam, and so it's going to be a stitch and flip to fill in the next areas. So I have my tan fabric, and I'm just going to lay it right side down, raw edges even, and I'm going to make sure that I extend enough on the outside of the block. And I have put regular thread, or I'm actually using my quilting thread for this block, and the needle. I still have embroidery bobbin thread in the bobbin. So step 5 is that seam. Step 6, we are going to flip the fabric right side up. We're going to finger press it and smooth it out, and then we're going to sew the tack down stitch, still using the quilting or the regular thread. And we're going to trim it here outside the block. We're going to also trim it on the inside of the block. On the inside we're going to want to do a 1/4 inch, scant 1/4 inch. And now we can go ahead and choose our next piece of fabric. Step 7 is a seam. So we're going to place our fabric right there, right side down with our raw edges even. We'll sew our seam. And then step 8, we're going to flip our fabric right side up. We're going to finger press, smooth it out, and sew a tack down. Just going to repeat this process. The seam, flipping it, finger pressing and sewing the tack down, and then trimming a 1/4 of an inch to a scant 1/4 inch inside the block. And if there's anything that lies on the outside of the block, you're going to trim that a 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch, and just leave it there, and that will be trimmed up later when we take it out of the block. Take it out of the hoop. Step 9 is a seam, so lay it right side down where our edge is even. And step 10 is flip it right side up, finger press and smooth out, and sew a tack down. Then we can trim it. Step 11 is another seam, and again you can choose any of your 3 main fabrics that you want to. It makes it kind of fun to give you some choices. Just try and use equal amounts of each one, and you can make each of the 4 blocks different. Step 12 is you flip it, finger press it, and smooth it out, and sew the tack down. Going to trim. Everything we're trimming here is inside the hoop, inside the block, so we're going to trim a 1/4 inch. Step 13 is another seam. Step 14 is a tack down stitch, so we'll flip our fabric right side up, finger press and smooth it out, and then sew the tack down. And now we'll trim scant 1/4 inch to a 1/4 inch on the inside of the block. Got kind of an awkward angle here. There we go. Step 15 is a seam. And step 16 is actually another seam, but before we get to that seam, we're going to flip this over and finger press it and trim it. And we're just going to make sure that it stays flipped right side up so it doesn't get caught. And then we'll do the next seam. This corner will be tacked down at the same time we add our backing fabric. Step 16, we're going to sew a seam right here. Going to, for step 17, flip the fabric right side up and finger press and sew a tack down stitch. And then I'm going to leave anything outside of the triangle block. I'll leave 1/4 to a 1/2 inch. Anything on the inside I will trim. On the small one, a scant 1/4 inch to a 1/4 inch, and then we can add another piece of fabric for step 18. Step 18 is another seam. We're going to flip and finger press. And we're going to trim a scant 1/4 inch to a 1/4 of an inch on the inside of the block. And we're going to leave 1/4 to a 1/2 an inch on the outside of the block. Step 20 is a seam. We're going to flip the fabric and finger press, and we're going to trim because we're going to be doing the tack down on the next step at the same time we add our backing fabric. So without it being tacked down, I'm just going to trim about a 1/2 an inch from the base outside edge of that triangle block, and then I'm going to change to water soluble thread, and we're going to add the backing. Okay, so I have placed my backing fabric on the back of the hoop, and I have it centered over the triangle, and I'm going to flip it right side up. I'm just going to peek underneath just to make sure it stayed in place, and it did. And I have water soluble thread in the needle, and I'm going to go ahead and make sure that my corners, which are not tacked down, are still finger pressed and laying flat. I'm going to go ahead and sew the tack down. Just take a look at the back real quick. And there our backing is attached. Alright, this is the final step, and I have my bobbin that now matches my needle thread. It's my pink quilt that I'm using for my quilting. And what we're going to do is you're going to, if you have an automatic thread cutter, you could turn that off at this time. Let me do that right now. Okay, my thread cutter is off, so now I'm just going to do needle down and a needle up and bring the bobbin thread to the top. By doing those 2 steps, it really avoids bird nests and just ugly backs. So it might be something that you might need to do to make it look prettier on the back. Just going to stop it and trim those tails and let it do the quilting. Here's my completed little crazy quilt block, and it's a small triangle. So on the small ones you will trim them through all the layers 3/8 of an inch from this basting stitch. On the large blocks you're going to trim a 1/2 an inch from the basting stitch, but on the small ones you're going to trim 3/8 of an inch away from the basting stitch. Oops, I guess I should have separated it. So this, I can take this extra batting and then do it 2 more times for the small blocks. And you'll do this on all 3 sides. It's so cute. Measure twice and cut once. And there you go. There's a little bitty baby crazy quilt block. And there's the back. Thanks for watching the video. Hope you enjoy this block.